This is a Sports Catastrophe production. Hey there, Heather, ho there. It's Jeff Cutter Diamond. Welcome you to another Sports Catastrophe on this date. And on this day, September the 24th, in 1969, somehow, in some way, the New York Mets win the 1969 National League East pennant. So we got to take a look at the 1969 Mets and make things happen. This was only the 8th season for the Mets in the majors. They started in 1962, probably. The Mets were terrible. They only won 40 games the first season, lost 120, which would be still the modern record for most losses in a season by a team. Hard to believe. The Mets kept coming on and on and on and on. But the problem was in the 7 previous seasons, the Mets were never higher than 9th place in the National League. They never had a winning season. And 5 of the 7 seasons, they lost 100 games, which is hard to believe. Now, 1969 was a season of change. Because with baseball expanding by 4 to Kansas City, Seattle, yes, it was the Seattle team before the Mariners, but they moved to Milwaukee the next year, Montreal and San Diego, they figured that you can't have 12 teams fighting for one World Series spot just within one division. So the powers that be decided, hey, you know what? Let's make 2 divisions, an East and a West division, having 6 teams in each division to battle each other. The top 2 teams, the winners of the divisions, would face each other in a best-of-5 playoff to decide who goes to the World Series. So you can see a few upsets. Now, it wasn't perfect because they put the Atlanta Braves in the West and the Chicago Cubs in the East. Anyway, so the Mets were trying everything in their power. They didn't really make too many big offseason trades and all that. Anyway, it was huge. People actually predicted the Mets to be 4th in the East out of 6 teams, ahead of Pittsburgh and Montreal. Unfortunately, the 69 Mets didn't start off that quickly. They actually lost the first game of the year to the expansion Expos at Chase Stadium. The Expos won 11-10, and the Mets still could not believe their luck. They couldn't win an opening day game. But the Mets did score 4 runs in the bottom of the 9th to make it close. The Mets would take the last 2 from the Expos in that series, and then lose 6 of the following 7. They were 9-14. And then the funny thing was, when Tom Seaver made a shutout May 21st, the Mets were 18-18, the best start in franchise history. But then the Mets got beaten down and useless. So they started off 18-23, which was bad. However, then they started an 11-game winning streak. And after that 18-23 start, they were 82-39 the rest of the way. A .678 winning percentage and an astounding 38-11 in the final 49 games of the season. So the Mets did suffer a little bit of problems. Houston took them out 10 out of 12 times. They were no hit by Bob Moose on September 20th, even though that they actually did have a 19 strikeout game thrown against them by Steve Carlton of the Cardinals. Yes, he was a Cardinals pitcher at the time. But the Mets still won the game because Ron Swoboda hit 2 2-run home runs. The Mets were 10 games back August 14th. However, in August, they went 14-3, and then 24 out of 32 in September and October. That's a .750 winning clip in September and October. To beat the Cubs by 8 games. So the Mets did fantastic. Especially starting in August, they were out fuego, 45-18. They won 100 games, beat the Cubs by 8 games in the division. And the Expos won 52 games. But it could have been worse. The problem for the Mets was that they could only win half their games against Cincy, and they couldn't beat Houston at the Astrodome. Other than that, they had a winning record against everyone. But September was a different story. Starting with that famous game on September the 9th, when the Black Cat got to the dugout, by the Cubs dugout. The Cubs were flattened, in a sense. So anyway, that's what happened. The simple fact was that the Mets had a great team, and they shocked everyone by not only being in contention, but actually winning the NL East. People thought she as in the Mets, would not be able to do it. But they did. The Mets would go on to sweep the Atlanta Braves in the NLDS. The winner of the East were the Mets. The West was Atlanta's win. But the Mets swept Atlanta's side and then took Baltimore out, surprisingly, in 5 games in the World Series, aided by a Game 3 win when Ron Swoboda and Tommy Agee went wild with outfield catches. Game 4, when J.C. Martin got hit by a ball that was supposed to go to first base to retire him, but he was inside the baseline, or so it seemed. And in Game 5, the shoe polish play by Cleon Jones. So the Mets went on to win the World Series, and then they went to the World Series in 73, but lost in Game 7 to Oakland. And then in 86, they won the title. So the Mets have only won 2 World Series in their lifetime. The same as the Blue Jays, but whatever. Doesn't matter. Yeah, the 69 Mets made dreamers out of everybody. A lot of people also said that the Cubs were tired because they had played all their home games in the daylight at Wrigley Field. They didn't have lights for 19 more years. And then, night baseball kind of made them soften. But it doesn't matter. The Cubs, if memory serves me right, were 6 or 7 games above 500 as well. The Mets had to put up 30-plus wins in a 40-game span to catch the Cubs. But that's what happens sometimes. You think you got everything under control, but you don't. Anyway, I'm Jeff Diamond. I do.